Morning.
Good morning.
So it's funny, while these AirPods connect, I'll tell you guys a funny stories. You talk about kids waking up. I remember a plumber coming to my house when my son was probably like a little more than a year. And I remember this guy looking at my son and he's like, man, you have no idea how good you have it. And I was looking at him, I'm like, what is this guy talking about? He's like, people want to feed you. People want to wipe your butt. People pick you up. People put you to bed. You get to take naps. Man, kid, you got it good. And I was like looking at the guy. I said, you know what? That's a really good perspective, right? Because all these kids really do have it good.
Did your son understand what he was saying? Probably
No,
not.
but my son now has grown up to be very smart at saying like, my stomach hurts. Can you get that for me? And I'm just gonna change your name to all inclusive. So look, thank you guys all for tuning in today. Tracy had food poisoning, so she's going to not be here with us today. So Rachel, do you want to introduce our participants? Parsa, are you here? Parsa?
I'm going to let you guys do the spotlight.
All right, so I guess it is the three of us here. So I want to introduce Josh and Vanessa. So if you meet two people that are like super laser focused and just all into their business, I couldn't think of two more deserving people. And, they're both in different places, right? Josh is in Boston. Vanessa's in Miami, or as I would say, the one free place in the entire United States, right? Like you go to Miami, it's like there's COVID in the rest of the world, but not in Miami, right? Like it's just kind of people are all out and about. And they're two very different markets and two very different dynamic places. But these are people that are laser focused on creating the best experiences for their clients, but they're also just churning out transactions, right? Like I think both of you guys could say that this is the busiest year and on pace to be the best year of your career.
For sure.
Yeah. So what we want to talk about today for everyone, and I want you guys to just each introduce yourself, kind of like who you are, where you work, and one fun fact about you. But we want the goal of this panel is talking about what's working right now, right? Like everyone always wants to know, what are the best agents doing? Like, how are they getting their business? How are they servicing their business? How are they working through their team? And what we want to do today is really identify those things for everyone else, so that the goal is like, as Roy would say, what does success look like? Success at the end of this looks like learning something great, connecting with your Compass peers, and having one thing that you could do new to bring back to your business to make more money, right? So Vanessa, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Sure. My name is Vanessa Maggi. I've been with Compass, I want to say 5-6 months, probably 5. I've been in the industry full time now for 8 years. I live in Miami. I live in Miami Shores, which is like a suburbs. It's very residential. It's single family homes. And one thing that I did from the beginning of my career, I was very focused on training. I was like, okay, let me get the best training. Let me follow who are the top producers, what they're doing, not reinvent the wheel, but mold it to me, mold it to my personality. And that's what I did. And I've always did single family homes from where I live. So I farm where I live. I continue to farm where I live. And luckily, after 8 years, it's going to be the best year of my career.
Josh?
Congratulations, Vanessa. Chirag, thanks for having me on. So my name is Josh Muncie. I'm from Boston. We've got a great team here called the Muncie Group. We have a goal, a heavy goal set by Chirag this year to double our GCI to 150 million. And we, our approach is that like, we don't try to be something to everybody. We like know our locations in the markets that we serve incredibly well. We've built a great business by like being local experts. And then on top of that, like we've found really good success with cultivating our developer relationships and growing our new development business. So that would be a fun fact about me. I don't have a good one. I don't know, Chirag, maybe you've got something about me that's quirky. But I have 3 children and one of them is a dog. So I'll say that.
Nice. So we have one more person. Tracy Clinton is in here. Parsa is her partner. So Parsa is in the great, as I joke around, state of Long Island, because I think Long Island like it's its own separate planet. So Parsa, introduce yourself and where you are and one fun fact.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Chirag, first of all, for having me here. We're all sorry that that Tracy's not feeling well and she couldn't be here with us. She's amazing and she is the leader. That's to say to the least. We came to Compass about 5 months ago now. It's been an incredible transition, obviously in an incredible market for everyone across the country. And just like Josh was alluding to, using developers and trying to find opportunities. Sorry, my phone's just nonstop here. And trying our best to find alternative solutions as to what used to work, right? So things have changed a little bit. And we're trying to find opportunities and little niches that we can build some business from. And it's been an exciting time, yet, you can see kind of the hair starting to go back and all that kind of stuff. But it's been fantastic and absolutely love being with the company. I would say a fun fact.
Tell them what you used to do before this.
All right, but that's not that fun, but okay. I was a professional tennis player many moons ago, and I coached for the last 15, 16 years. And then now I've been in real estate for about 4. I'm in year 4. And it's been a wild transition, and very, very grateful for everything. And, I just can't wait to meet all of you and continue to have discussions. I love learning from others.
So we have 3 people in 3 different phases, right? And Parsa's actually doubled his business every year. And although you might not think it's interesting being a professional athlete, the rest of us do. So I'm going to go to Vanessa first, right? You talked about building your farm, right? I know from our coaching together, you're very focused on your farm. For everyone that's thinking about farming, right? Like, I think farming has a lot to do with patience. If someone wants to get into farming, now that you've done it for, you built a successful farm where a lot of your business comes to there, like, what are some tips on getting started and the realistic expectations actually having lived through building it successfully?
I do have a fun fact about that, actually. When I started my career 8 years ago, I was with Keller Williams, and I was thrown into this like a month later, not knowing anything about real estate. I used to be, just a little background on myself, the publisher of Vogue for Latin America and the US Hispanic markets. I had my 3rd child. I stayed home for 7 years, right? After a while, my husband's like, okay, you need to go back to work. And I was like, okay. Publishing in Miami is very small, especially in Spanish. There's only like 2 big companies. And my husband said, you should go into real estate. Fast forward, I said, okay, let me join Keller Williams. It's in Miami Shores. I go to these huge conferences that they put together, and I go to one of the sessions that says farming. I'm sitting there. I'm like, hey, I want to farm this area. What do I do? And he's like, well, is there like top producers there? And I'm like, yeah, there's these 2 really big agents that have been there forever. They're like, what's the market share? I had no idea what she's talking about. I said, they probably have like 50% more than that. She goes, there's no way. Don't get into that market. Don't do it. And I'm just sitting there going, well, that's where I live. I've been there for now 18 years, back then 10. My kids go to school there. I have 3 kids. I have tons of friends. Why won't I network there? This is what I do every day. I'm there. So of course, at that point, I was like, screw you. I'm not going to follow what you're saying. And I continue, right? Begging one of my friends to give me a listing. She's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want the friendships to be ruined. So give me a 3-month listing. We sold the property within 2 weeks at that time, 8 years ago. And from that listing, I got, I put a sign, it said sold. So a neighbor called me. And it was just a trickle effect. But not a trickle effect. I think the one thing that has been very successful is just being very, very focused on what I do. And then just doing it every day, consistency. And spending the money. I treat this as my own business. I advertise. I heavily advertise. People tell me all the time, they see me everywhere. And that's where I want them to think and see me. And I get leads from Zillow. I don't pay for Zillow, but people see me in Zillow. People see me next door. Obviously, we have our own Miami Shores puts a newsletter out. I advertise there. So you're going to find me everywhere. Now, obviously, I have a budget to do it. At the beginning, I didn't. So I was just calling. And I still call people and get a lot of listings. Oh.
All right, guys. So I'm going to synthesize that, right? Number one, if you live somewhere, your kids are somewhere, you believe in your community, don't be afraid that there are other people. Number two, be relentless, be patient, but most importantly, be consistent, right? You need to be focused and know what you're doing. And you can't be afraid to invest money, right? And you can't look at this. Like, I think what I pull out of what Vanessa said, I think it's motivating to everyone else is, if you know this is what you want, it's going to be, it's not if, it's when, right? Vanessa, you know, for you, I know your relentless mindset. It's like when, like, I want it, I'm going to go after it, I'm going to get it, right? And you got to keep going. So that's great. Now, Josh, let's talk about being local, right? So one of the things that I know that you do really well to get into local is you join certain organizations that were very strategic that help you get these relationships. Can you tell everyone who wants to be local into an area, like some areas, how they could start getting grassroots oriented, which could ultimately help them lead to a better local business?
For sure. I mean, guys, the name of the game in real estate is relationships. And you need to be meeting people, you need to cultivate new relationships, and need to improve the existing ones that you have, and be there for people. And that's what kind of makes the job fun. And like, if you live in your neighborhood and like you love it and you're passionate about it, and that's where you want to work and focus, then having more relationships across that neighborhood is going to exponentially drive a lot of business to you. So for me, like years back when I started, once I realized where I wanted to focus, I joined a board for a local nonprofit that I loved. I joined the zoning board, and did the local zoning board, and like got to learn about development matters and zoning, and get face to face with a lot of people in the community. And just focused on like supporting others. I joined local business boards. So there's like a Main Streets organization and a business and professional organization. Then I had a couple kids and I got off of a few of those because like my wife would kill me if I didn't help with bedtime a little bit. But now that they're a little older, I'm back on some things here and there. But like those relationships, like suddenly, like if you know the other local business owners in the neighborhood that you're working, and you're out there supporting people, like these are the great ways to like meet everybody in your neighborhood, to get in front of people, learn about events that you can sponsor, and like not just sponsor but be present at, and like talk to people. And that's worked out really, really well for us. Is that, Chirag, do you have a follow-up question to that, or is that good?
No, I think I'll synthesize it for you guys. So look, it's understanding, like what I get out of listening, right? Have a bigger picture, right? You want to work with developers, zoning board's a good place. But again, patience, right? Right, Vanessa, right, Josh? Like this is not going to happen overnight, right? They both said the name of the game is relationships. Vanessa calls people. I know Josh still contacts people, right? So it's like start getting planted in your community and start meeting people, right? But I think for Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, you knew your end in mind when you started, right? Like when you were going to the zoning board, it was, you thought that was how you learn more about local, how you can meet developers?
Yeah, before I had business, I was doing any and everything that I could. I was seeing what stuck, what worked, what didn't. I would like, before I had a Compass design team behind my back, I was on like Apple Pages making templates with tear sheets and throwing them up in the local coffee shops. Any and everything that I could do to see, and like, believe it or not, I got a buyer and did a deal off of that. But like just, it is all about relationships, and figuring out how you can get in front of people on a local basis. And Chirag, just to piggyback what you just said, on like, it's not a quick fix. Like this is a long-term thing. Like stay focused on like what you want to do. So like there is a lot, like we've had hiccups lately, in that like, we're like, oh, listings are the name of the game. We got to get more listings. And suddenly we're doing circle prospecting and signing up for these things that are not our expertise and not how we've traditionally driven a lot of business. And it kind of airballed and didn't necessarily work out. It agents did it, but it didn't produce a lot of leads for our team. Whereas like other things that like are tried and true practices that we've been doing for a long time, like focusing and doubling down on those things has worked really well.
Patience is the name of the game, guys. So I would say three things: discipline to do what you know you need to do, consistency, doing it regardless how you feel over and over again, and then patience is really giving it the time for the system to work, right? Like if you plant the seed, you have to water it every single day, and then eventually the plant starts growing, right? So Parsa, my man, this is such a great diverse panel. So you've been doing this 4 years, right? So there are always people on here that have just joined teams that are just getting started. Like, what have you been doing that's successful that's allowed you to double your business, right? Like the thing about Parsa, you set the man a target, he is obsessed and he'll get there, right? Like that's the athlete in him. But how is it that you've been able to, like, what's worked for you as a new agent, right? Because no one knew that you're in real estate, and it's very different to be viewed as a professional tennis player to a professional coach to now, hey, let me handle the largest financial transaction of your life.
Absolutely. And it's definitely utilizing the skills. And I would say the number one thing that has worked. So not only is it consistency, not only is it patience, definitely in looking into the relationships, and it's actually very fruitful and enlightening, to be honest with you. It's so much more than real estate. You know, you make a call, hey, what's going on, blah blah blah, this is what's going on in my life, what's going on with you, da, da, da. And you're like, you know what, I have a friend who this and that. And it's been a wave, a slow building wave, that has continually gotten bigger and bigger and bigger by, hey, make 5 phone calls a day. Just call, just anyway, they're your friends anyway. They're people that you know that would love to hear from you. And what I was blessed with coming into real estate, and that helped me a lot, is I had a great sphere of influence already. And I had a manager back at my past company who stressed sphere of influence, sphere of influence, sphere of influence. And I continually, still to this day, I'm still relatively new in the business. And I talk about, Josh said doubling down in what works. I doubled down into my sphere. That's what I doubled down into. And I go a little bit deeper and sort of build relationships through relationships, if that makes any sense. It's a tremendous amount of hustle. I'm not going to lie about that. It's a tremendous amount of unknown, meaning, which is right up athletes' world, right? You don't know what the outcome is going to be while you're in the middle of the competition. It's the same thing in real estate. It's a little slower moving, but I have no idea where certain things are going and how they are. But I always have check marks, and 3 months later, I'll assess how that advertising campaign went, or how the postcards, the farming area went, or how my phone calls are going. And I will tell you that, maybe it is an interesting factoid about my tennis background, but I would say 80% of my business is coming from that background, whether it's an interesting conversation, someone who plays the sport, someone who I worked with in the past, whatever it is, that is where a majority of my business is definitely coming from. So I would echo what everyone has said so far and what you're saying, and what has been and what I'm starting to see in year 4, if it makes any sense, is if I did, if I had 1 referral in year 2 from business that I did in year 1, I did probably 3 in year 3, and I already have about 8 referrals just this year alone. So that's probably my number 1 business, and which is why I was saying doubling down on my sphere of influence. I've used those relationships to gain other relationships and therefore business. But my approach has never been about, yes, I want to make money, right? 100%. I'm a businessman, I'm an entrepreneur, this is what I want to do. It hasn't been from that approach, though. It's been more to learn about people. Like I'm genuinely interested to hear on this panel, like, listen to what Josh, that genuinely interests me. I'm interested in people and learning about what they have to offer. And by being genuine, I feel like in its own way, it matriculates business, because they're like, all right, I could have Joe or Susie, over here that's, sending postcards, or I've got this guy Parsi, he's super genuine. Like, I know I can trust him. I know he's going to work his beep off. And, let's give him a call. Let's see how he is. And they put me against, big time brokers in the area. And I come in, I'm just like, yeah, this is what I offer. This is what I have. You know, this is an incredible team that's with me and behind me. You know, I see Suzanne on the call. You know, there's amazing people that I work with that enable me and enrich me and enable me to offer something to each prospective client. And I think it's worked, whether it's the buy side or the list side, really, really well. You know, it's about surrounding yourself with quality.
We could just raise our hands if we all feel like inspired right here. That was like Braveheart, right? That was deep. You know, Josh, would you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head, Parsa. Like, this is like, be genuine. Like, that's what makes the job fun, right? It's like relationships that you know, like if you're in this job, like you're probably like relatively okay with other people. And so you know, I was telling somebody yesterday, I got into this job because my first job out of college was a desk job, and like I just couldn't deal with that. Like, so most of us enjoy talking with other people, cultivating relationships. But yesterday, like I had a client that we sold their place, I don't know, towards the beginning of the pandemic. And like, I remembered that he plays basketball. And this past weekend, like I got together with my old group of people outside, everybody that's fully vaxxed at least, and we got an outdoor game. And I reached out to him and I was like, I remember we were talking about this. Do you want to join this group? And that's the kind of like just being a friend and like, you know, staying in touch with these people like is all it takes, like figuring out how you can support people and being real in yourself. So that's done really well for us.
Vanessa?
You guys are frozen. I'm not. You can see me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I completely 100% agreed. I mean, I've gone after listings, you know, very big time agents, more experienced than me, and people see through you, right? 100%. So and I'm in this to help them. Sometimes it's great. They're going to buy a bigger home. You know, they're upsizing. Sometimes it's really a divorce. You know, they lost their jobs. You know, they're bad situations. So I'm genuine, and I show them all the time gratitude, and they know. I mean, and they become my friends. So just be genuine on whatever you do in these transactions, basically.
So here's a couple things, and guys, start putting if you have specific questions, start putting them in the chat box right now. Some things that I want to just kind of synthesize, right? A lot of times, and this is really interesting to Parsa's point of view. He's like, I got one referral from year one that might have been blank amount of money. The second year I got this much money. The third year I got this much money. The fourth year I got this much money. None of us really quantify and keep track of our metrics like that. Because if you did it where Parsa was, you'd be like, wow, if I just called more people I know and have conversations I feel comfortable having than necessarily meeting random anonymous strangers online in vacant homes, right? I can make a lot more money, right? Like all three of these people have doubled down on relationships, right? Like they've all said that their clients become their friends, right? Like, you know, real estate is like, it's like I always joke around, if you need to make friends, just become a real estate agent because your clients will become your friends, right? And these are very authentic, genuine relationships. So in terms of being authentic, being genuine, right? What's one challenge that you guys have each had recently over the last year that you've had to work through?
I can go first. I had, you know, it gets to a point that I had to fire a client, and it was hard because it was a lot of money at the end in commission. It was a $2 million listing. But, you know, at the end, I fired him. The wife intervened. She's like, no, don't listen to my husband anymore. You're not going to talk to me. But the guy was just like rude, right? And just rude. And I try to go deep, okay, understand why he was like that with me. Everything that I did was wrong. Everything that I said, everything that I wrote about the listing, everything was absolutely wrong. It's just because they had found another property and they didn't want to lose it. So if he didn't sell this house in a matter of a month, he was going to, you know, lose the other property. And he was taking it on me because he had to put all his chips and all his emotions on myself. But bottom line, I stood for myself. I said, listen, I can have this. I was on vacation. He will call and yell at me. My husband's like, okay, you need to fire this guy. And I did. At the end, the wife intervened and we sold the house within a month. but that was hard. I didn't want to let go, but it was affecting me. You know, it was affecting me on the daily basis with my other relationships with clients as well.
Josh, what's one challenge that you've had to work through over this past year?
Parsi, you're next. I'm still thinking.
I mean, so I'm trying to go through one challenge. I mean,
Any
has
challenge.
anyone,
You could
yeah, I mean, has anyone not, I mean, I've had a couple of easy deals, but I think everything by and large has been extremely difficult. You know, there's, whether you're working with the buyers, which I work with a lot of buyers, you know, and you know, this madness about, hey, you get accepted. I just had a call this morning, got accepted somewhere. I'm like, all right, now the sprint begins. And they're like, wait, what? Shouldn't we be like, you know, open a bottle of champagne? I'm like, no, you know, like this is what you need to do. Blah, 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 blah. And you need to move very quickly. So I think every deal has been more or less more challenging than normal. Normally you have a little bit of time. You could think through your tactics and your strategy and how you want to approach certain things. I think that's been the most difficult to absorb, and it's all been happening in a short time frame. So blessed, very lucky, very, very, very happy to have this problem, but it's a lot of transactions happening at one spot, all different price points, all different types of needs. And I was texting with an agent this morning, pretty early in the morning, and you know, we were saying how, yeah, I'm exhausted, you know, and we're going through it. And again, a genuine point of view here has been that people really need space and they need a home. And that has been probably the most difficult thing to deal with, in that you can't necessarily find a home in their price range for what they're looking for. And it's been having to move outside of the area of what we normally operate in order to find them what can be really important for them, you know. And I'm specifically talking about my market here, right? We deal with New York City, a ton of people that don't frankly want to be in the city right now, because either they have kids that need a little bit of space, or they need better schools, or they don't, you know, New York City didn't have school for the longest time. So a lot of these people were coming back out east. So and they're looking in our areas, they're like, oh, I've got a $750,000 budget. Like, I could have last year find you something in near my area locally, but now I'm having to go, you know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes further east in order to find space that's right for them. And I think the hard part about that is not the travel and not the time and not the distance, but emotionally connecting with your client and be able to really truly work for them to find them a space that's going to be great for their family. And that's been the hardest part. It just hasn't been easy.
I think everyone can relate to that.
I have something similar, but it's on the listing side. So I don't work with a lot of buyers from the beginning of my career. I said I'm going to be a listing agent, and I continue. I refer my buyers out. I do have a buyer's agent on my team. I have a very small team. Anyways, my challenge right now is, since everything's selling and the prices have skyrocketed, they're like overly trying to, let's say the listing is 1.5, and that's already really, really high, right? Where the sellers are telling me, well, no, I really want to list it for 2. And I'm showing them the evidence. Okay, your house pushing on this marketplace might be 1.6, 1.7. They're like, no, we want $2 million. So not to lose the listing, I will take the listing, obviously, but we'll have the conversation that if within that month the listing is not sold or under contract, they're gonna go with my price point, basically. That has been
Vanessa, I definitely can echo that. Luckily, I mean, I just listed something that was overpriced. I went as far as showing them an indemnity agreement that I have. They're like, hey, you're not going to hold me harmless. You're going way over what this is. What
and
the
somebody
market
paid
is
for it, right?
It's amazing, Chirag. But then of course, the first person walks in, gives an incredible number, and it's all cash, and there's no contingencies, there's no appraisal. I'm like, what is happening right now? And you know, it is what it is. I'm happy, and you know, that I'm able to get such a number, and I want to celebrate and say, hey, I'm great. I don't know. I think it's more just a bearing to the market.
So
what's
here's
happening
a couple things I'll add to this, right? If you look at my hands, like this is where the market is today. A house that sold here generally would be a comp, right? Like, oh, this house sold 3 weeks ago. But that house didn't sell 3 weeks ago. The house sold whenever the house went to contract that was here. And when you have these compounding markets every month, they're going up. This is the only time you'll ever hear this in my life is saying this is you can't argue with these people. You do what Vanessa does, like if in 30 days this doesn't happen, let's agree now and put it into the contract, right? But people are paying this. It's completely egregious what people are paying. But look, I guess if you get locked down in your house, assuming that it happened once, it could probably happen again in our lifetimes. People have now redefined what home is. Companies are allowing you to work differently. So there's a lot of different factors into this. So these are two great points that you brought up. Josh, you have lots of good nuggets here. You're not getting out of this. So
I mean, I've got a list of notes to the side here that I can rattle.
In terms of, I'm going to actually pick something, right? Like, let's talk about in terms of just delegating out, right? Like you have a big team, you use leverage. What's one takeaway you could take and share with people about people that have team members or working through other people?
Hire slow, hire the right people. Really makes all the difference in the world. We had a little staffing issue a few months ago. And it's hard. I mean, you pour your time and energy to find somebody, and then training, and then if it doesn't work out, like that's a really big step back. And if you're seeking out this leverage to delegate properly, to bring clarity and a seamless process to your team, like it all starts with A+ players across the board. There's no room for like, somebody that might not be able to bring their A game to the team. And so like that's been a struggle, but also like a real area of growth that like I've really enjoyed, and frankly like have gotten a lot of great support from you, Chirag, and your team in doing. But it is, and I see Ken popping up in the chat. Yes, like I'm sure you're helping him with something similar. But to bring it back to like what you've said, and then like what I heard Rory echo a week ago, alignment and clarity across the board is what's going to drive everything in a seamless fashion. And like that starts with having like a good team that's in it to win it and ready to do the work. So that's been helpful for, in terms as agents, like most of us did not get an MBA. We don't know like the ins and outs, the finances of management, what that looks like. There's a lot of people that hire an assistant and they're like, read my mind, just figure it out. Like I'm busy, I'm selling stuff. And the right people, like it takes more than that on our part. So like we have to take a step back and invest in these people, to be clear. But the right people can make the world of difference in terms of like getting from A to B and what you need to do and the delegating, et cetera.
That was the exact answer I was looking for. So before we go up to Q&A, I realized that I never tell anyone kind of what we do with you guys here in terms of like a group, right? So I see there are a lot of new faces, and what I love is we probably have a good, Josh, right? Like 50 people that show up to our workshops every morning, right? So look, we have a great group coaching program. It's this and 3 other workshops. So stuff that, what do I do when I don't have comps, right? Like these are all things that we work on. And look, we have different topics each week that are relevant. So look out, Rachel put my email in here if you have any interest in joining our community. We have agents, I believe, in 14 different states. There's a lot of collaboration here. And it's a place within Compass where we teach you one ecosystem of how you utilize the tools, the peoples, the relationships, and some really tried and true methods of coaching. And so I know that our community has got a lot out of it. Rachel has done an amazing job of kind of the way that we brought people together. Yesterday, we started a new thing on Tuesdays of doing group role playing in Zoom rooms, which people really liked. And look, we're constantly listening to your feedback, finding out what's relevant to the market, to the time. And Josh, as busy as he is, still shows up every day. And there's nothing canned about what we do. So look, if you're in a position where you're looking to grow your business and invest in yourself, we'd love to talk to you. And if it's not the right time, please keep coming back, right? We have stuff that we do that's complimentary every single week. We do run other workshops and take advantage of what you have, right? So like if you listen to what they say is be genuine, be authentic, have a plan, be consistent, invest in your business, and understand how to have clarity for you and everyone else around you, right? I think one of the challenges that we all have in business is we're going to all these different sources for information, right? And then it's like, how do you put the recipe together, right? So it's like, I think about like, how do you be successful in your business? Like, you know, like a good meat sauce. The meat sauce has one recipe, but like, if you look at the person that's cooking the recipe, they know all the ingredients, they know how to cook it, they know how it's going to come out. Now, if you go and ask 15 different people for parts of their recipes, and then you try to put the recipe together yourself, it's not going to come out the same way. So make sure that whatever you guys are all doing in your business, that you're focused, it's in alignment with your goal, you have clarity on what you're doing, and just always keep learning, right? I don't think this ever stops for any of us. And I think from the gambit of experience that they have is everyone's in a little bit of a different place, and you could hear what they're saying. So align with the people that are where you want to go, figure out what skills you have and how you can fast track their journey of learning, right? That's the essence of coaching and collaboration and being part of a community. So if anyone has any questions, we have a few minutes left. And if not, we could give everyone some time back, or any words you guys want to share with everyone before you go. Josh?
All right. A few quick hits there. For anybody on this call that's like scared to prospect, you know, I just want to give some thoughts about what's worked for me. And that is that changing my mindset before I get on a call. And like, because like the natural way for me to go into a call is like, oh, if I talk about real estate, I'm a shitty salesman and like I'm going to be judged. Here's the reality. If you're calling a friend or a contact, you're calling to check in how they're doing. Inevitably, they're going to go, how are you? How's the job? You know, or how's the market? All you have to do is just wait for them to prompt you, and then speak enthusiastically and speak passionately. And that is infectious. And that's it. Like from what's worked well for me. And so just kind of like being focused on the other person on the phone, waiting for that time where they talk. And then like, I got to be honest, we're all celebrities here because real estate, like if you're at a party, like people love to talk about real estate. It's not really sales. It's just something natural. It's a spoiled sales, I guess. And so just like know what you want to say when somebody asks you, how's the market, or how are you doing in real estate? Another thing I wanted to share real quickly is that warming up. I mean, Vanessa, it's very different in Florida than it is in Boston. I hear there's no pandemic in Florida. I'm kidding, but so like people, at least here, it's like, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I met a couple developer clients. I invited them to meet up at a driving range. People are excited to get out and network in a safe way and take advantage of that. And lastly, new development, which has worked really well for our team. I think like it's very important more than ever to keep an eye on like, how can anybody step into that a little bit? Because that is one of the ways that this this inventory issue ultimately is corrected. And so this is going to be a big trend to watch. But like for those of you who have no experience doing that and are thinking like, what can I do to kind of start to step into it? I would recommend two things. The first is to learn as much as you can, like just read about new development, visit new developments in your marketplace, and talk with your Compass marketing contact to like understand like what do they bring to the table to support you if you were to get a developer client or a development opportunity. And the other thing is just have coffee with people and not to be afraid to like reach out and start a new relationship, because I have developments that we're marketing right now that were just started over a random coffee with no pre-existing relationship. And it's super exciting. So it's some of that is about stepping out of your comfort zone.
Definitely agree with that, Josh. You know, you have to, in order to grow, you have to step outside what you know, and you have to try different things. And it's okay to be burned. You know, it's okay. Like, because if anything, you're eliminating one possibility or one route, and so it's going to give you a finer amount of routes that will take you to success. So you got to go down, get burns, go back home, do it again, wake up the next day and go after it. 100%, Josh. Great job.
And talking about mindset, it's huge, right? I lost a listing that was completely overpriced and it sold overpriced, right? And I go into the pitching of the listing, me and somebody else. I knew who the other agent was going to be. He's been in the market for 3 years. He's in a very small real estate firm. I'm like, there's no way this guy can compete over me. Well, guess what? He wasn't as cocky as me. He went in there with a great marketing, super enthusiastic. And when I called to be like, okay, when are we signing the listing? They're like, no, we went with the other guy. And I was like, what? And they're my neighbors. So now I see the sign every freaking time I walk out my door, right? So it's like a reminder, do not be cocky, do your job, be grateful, and have the mindset of a winner. And treat every client, which I do, from 200,000 to 5 million, 6 million, the same way, right? This guy who was less experienced, but really hungry, showed up there 120%. I showed up there 80%. I lost the listing. So yeah.
I appreciate that so much. And like just the general theme of be genuine that we've been talking about here today. Like if you're at one of these meetings, like tell the client what's best for them, not what's best for you. Like be honest and true. And I think like all three of us here have won a handful of listings and gotten feedback that was like, I'm hiring you because like I connected with you. Like you're a real person. And some other people come in and you think they're a good agent and their marketing's nice, but apparently they're a little bit more like robots in person and don't have that sincerity. And being yourself can in fact go a long, long way.
Be yourself, everybody else is taken, right? So yep, that is to make more money, offer more value. So look, thank you guys all for being here. I think this was, as we could say, food for the soul for all of us. There are tons of actionable nuggets. And look, on behalf of me and my team, thank you guys all for making the time to be here today. And, you know, it says a lot about everyone in this community, right? Like on any given week, there's 50 to 200 people that show up to make themselves better, right? And these kind of people, like we fundamentally, in the crazy world we live in, it's like, did we ever think we'd live in a world where depending on where you're geographically located, it's a completely different experience besides weather and like weather, right? Like, so if you think about it, we have such an important role to play. And by doubling down on our strengths, being more genuine people, being a great active listener, being more present to other people's needs, you're the conduit to the biggest decision someone's going to make in their life right now, right? It's like, where are they going to live? Right? You're not going out. Like I always used to joke around. I'm like, this is going to be a true testament of relationships and people, because people are not physically built to be with their significant others and kids 24 hours a day, right? We normally leave 8 or 9 hours. We come back and everything else. So all this stuff has been reinvented for everyone. And you guys, everyone out there is doing the work to make this possible for people. And every time somebody moves, it's somebody's dream that they're moving into. And like, even if they're getting divorced, their dream is going somewhere else. So you're still being partaken in something very important. So just be really present to that fact. Never lose sight of that. Keep connecting, guys, and keep making a difference. And I encourage you guys all to build more relationships with each other. So we will see you guys all tomorrow. Have a great one.
Thanks, Chirag. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Chirag. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care.